Right, for a quick spin on 1800. A few little jobs I want to get done. And while we're at, I'll get a couple of little updates on what I've been on with. Right, first thing on to Android Auto. I've messed about with that while I'm blowing teeth. Couldn't get it really to work well. I mean, I was using a Samsung S7 Edge, and I don't know, it connects sometimes and other times it just wouldn't. Anyway, I've done a bit of an upgrade, and I've now got an S9. It was something my daughter let me have. Plugged it in and it worked straight away. So as for that, I've got that working. It seems to work alright. It works fine. And as you know, I'm planning on going down Portugal with it next year. So I've been looking at the navigation options. And I've always used Garmin sat-navs. Now this has got a sat-nav built into it. I've done a fair bit of messing about with it and playing, and to be quite honest, yeah, it's alright for if you want to use it round local, nip to an address or some shops or something like that. But if you wanted to plan a route, I don't really think it's that good. It's not just what it ought to be, really. You'd have thought for 20 grand they could have stuck a bit better sat nav in. I mean, it's great if you're running about local, but if you want to go anywhere, it's not going to be the nav of choice, I'll put it that way. So then I started looking at doing it with my phone and what have you, and to be quite honest, it's maybe me who's just not comfortable with that. So what I did was I bought myself one of the new Garmin XTs. That's what this mount's all about. See, I've mounted it like that. I've wired it into the fuse box because it's got an aux fuse box, you know, which allows you to run out like this. Luckily for me, I don't know, Garmin 660, Zumo 660. Quite expensive in the day, like, been a bloody good sat-nav as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I wanted another mount to mount it onto this. I didn't want to rob the mount off me Yam. Anyway, it turns out you can't get a mount for it for love nor money. I saw one second-hand for 100 quid, and I thought I wasn't paying 100 quid for a second-hand Garmin mount. So anyway, I stuck it on eBay and I sold it for 150 quid. So I put 150 quid towards XT, which was 382 quid. So anyway, it is what it is. So I've got sat-nav job sorted out. Right, the fuel gauge problem on this bike, God knows whether it'll get any better, but it doesn't appear to be. I'm still only showing, as you can see, 36.3 miles per gallon. I've checked it religiously and it's doing somewhere between 48 and 54. That's what it's doing. Range, I don't know if you can see that, the range shows 144 mile and I've done 40 mile on this tank full, so that'll give you, you know, complete range of about 190 mile. Well, these should have a range of about 230, 240, according to everybody else I spoke to who's got one. Anyway, initially I thought, oh, because of its sender unit in petrol tank. Anyway, I metered petrol tank sender up, and I think it's should be about 7.5 ohms or 6.7 ohms, whatever it is. It's bang in middle at spec they give at empty and full, so it's categorically not the sender unit. Well, the manual then only says it's the actual display unit. So anyway, we'll see how good Unts come off at Manchester. I've rung him up yesterday, explained it. Bit awkward explaining it to lad like, but anyway. And he said, all I seem to get out of him, well, there is a big discrepancy on them, you know, and this, that and other. But I mean, it's, what, 20% out? Something like that. You know, because when I fill it up and get down to half a tank, or what's showing as half a tank, I only get about 8 litres in it. Well, it's a 21.5 litre tank. So, you know, that's not, it's a bit out. And range, it never shows much of a range above 170 mile, and I've got this average trip consumption, fuel consumption average of 36, which is 50, so you know, I mean, there's 15 mile an hour out sort of thing, isn't it? You know, there's 6 bars up gauge, so it's what, 3.5 litres per notch up gauge. Well, I run down this to very last notch and still only get 14 litres of petrol in it, so somewhere along the line there's something not quite right. Now, the lad at Hunt says only thing he can do is talk to Honda and see what they say, because obviously he knows just about as much as I do, which is nada, because it tells you nothing in the workshop manual how these is calculated and all else. All it tells you is the test for the sender unit and how and how to test the gauge. Now, the gauge tests alright in the fuel tested gear, but obviously there's some computer somewhere what's calculating the fuel consumption and the averages are and the range and what have you and what aren't you. And so that's where we are with that. It's not very good really, and I hope they come good, but I'm not optimistic, to be quite honest. I think he said it'd take under a week to get back to him. Anyway, I'll give him a ring next week, but I expect it's going to be the old piss off. That's what I expect. I'll be highly surprised if it ain't. And that was just the way the bloke spoke. Well, you know, I mean, if you bought a car and fuel gauge were that far out, you wouldn't really be that happy. And I mean, this thing at 20 grand, you know, it's more than some cars. So really, it should be better than what it is. Oh, maybe I'm just a fussy bastard. But if I've spent my money, I like something to be quite right. And anyway, I can see it ending up being an argument, but it'll get me nowhere. Whether I'm willing to shove it far enough to get into small claims courts or not, I haven't made my mind up yet. I mean, if I were riding around local all the time, it wouldn't bother me, but I bought this thing because I would hope to get a few mile down Europe on it. And the truth of it is, if you're setting off for a day's ride, you want to know roughly how far you can go. You want to know, you know, how much petrol you've got in tank, not, you know, we'll take a rough guess. I mean, I've had quite a few bikes and I've never had one with a more inaccurate fuel gauge in my life. Anyway, now I've got that good moan off my chest. I still like bike. The more I use it, the more I enjoy it. Pretty good. And I couldn't believe it last week. If you saw my last video where I just managed to rub pegs up floor, I was expecting to get a bollocking off missus, and to be quite honest, she didn't say out. So looks like I got away pretty lucky. You cannot believe how stable these are for a big bike. I mean, it's as stable as anything I've ever ridden on. It just feels so planted. The heated grips are bloody awesome. They really are quite good. I mean, it's 11 degrees today, so it's not that bad like, but my mistress were out on it the other day and it was pretty fresh. And like I say, it wasn't bad. I mean, mirrors keep most of the wind off your hand, but there's a right draft comes through this slot here, which of course it's your right up finger ends. I'm sure somebody will come up with something before long just to fill that bit of gap in. We'll just slip down this back road here. It's fetches you out exactly at the same spot, but this road's a little bit more interesting. I've actually ordered a new screen from Skidmark on this. They do a shot screen similar to what's on it. They do a copy of the standard screen, and they do a tall screen. Now this screen's about an inch to shot for me, really. Or it would be if it were, you know, raining or out like that. So I ordered what this new screen from Skidmark, and I've asked them to cut it down. I've had 60mm taken off a standard screen, which means when it's full up it'll be more than adequate for me, and when it's full down it'll be a, I don't know, I think it's 50mm higher than this one or something, so I think it'll be alright. Pretty cheap and all, 125 quid, it's not end of the world, is it? I don't know if that included VAT and postage or what like, but they didn't charge me any more money for altering it, so, which I thought were pretty bloody good. The standard crane comes straight up and across top. It's got corners in, so it'll just take that bit of wind off your shoulders. I thought it'd be alright for colder weather. They didn't say how long it'd be like. mean, to say this motor, I mean, it only makes, I think it's 125 brake horse. I think somebody says it's about 98 brake horse off back wheel, but anyway, I'm not sure. About 100 foot-pounds of torque, 125 foot-pounds of torque. And I think most of the torque is made from about, I don't know, 1500 revs. I mean, I hadn't seen torque curve for it, but they reckon it's about as flat as a pancake, like. So basically, if you're out on out like this, you know, this sort of road, you only need 2 gears. Knock it down to 5th for a bit of engine braking, and then back up into 6th. I mean, it's a bit like an automatic, really. It's that much grunt that it just pushes its sen along nicely. Of course, at this time in England, you've always got to keep your eyes out because it's potato time. So wheat farmers get it taters in, there's always quite a bit of mud up roads, or there can be mud up roads, so you just got to be a bit careful. Don't like being stood here. It's blind over at top of hill, so out coming over at top of hill sharp. We're definitely into autumn now. Leaves is starting to come down. You don't make bus down here very often. Just a bit of messing about here. That's ticking over 500 revs, 10 mile an hour. Less than 10 mile an hour in third. Uphill. We're this far out, so I think what we'll do is we'll bob up to Squire's, see if a couple of mates is there, have a cup of tea. $60 mile an hour, 1900 revs. That's 70 mile an hour, 2,300 revs. Or thereabouts. Bloody hell, that bit of sun's pulled fetched plenty out.
I say it's funny that, Joe, because when I saw